When I was 14, I found out my entire family went on a cruise without me, all because I was accidentally added to their private group chat. This is the story of how I found out why they secretly left me behind, and how that one single notification changed my life forever. It was a betrayal so complete that it forced me to see the truth about the people I was supposed to trust most. What would you do if your whole world fell apart from a single buzz of your phone? Before it all came crashing down, I thought I understood my family. I knew my place in it, or I thought I did. I was the responsible one, the quiet one, the good one. At 14, my entire world was built around trying to be perfect. I got straight A's, did my chores without being asked, and helped my younger brother with his homework. I never complained when my parents asked me to babysit on a Friday night so they could go out. I was basically the poster child for a low-maintenance kid. My family was full of big, loud personalities. My dad was the center of gravity, a guy whose laugh could fill a room but whose moods could just as easily suck all the air out of it. My mom orbited him, reflecting his energy and managing the chaos he left behind. And then there was my older brother, Mark. Mark was the golden child. He was 2 years older, charming, athletic, and effortlessly cool. He could do no wrong. If he got a B, the teacher was unfair. If I got a B, I obviously hadn't studied hard enough. This wasn't a secret, it was just the air we breathed. Family get-togethers were a showcase for Mark's latest trophies, which were all over the mantelpiece while my academic awards were stuffed in a desk drawer. They'd tell stories about his game-winning goals on a loop until they became family legend. My achievements got a quick, "Oh, that's nice, honey," before the conversation moved on to something more interesting. I learned early that my role was to be the reliable background character in their show. I didn't have my brother's sparkle or my dad's big personality. I was just there. Dependable and easy to overlook. I wanted their approval so bad it felt like a constant, dull ache in my chest. I thought if I was just good enough, quiet enough, helpful enough, one day they'd turn around and really see me. I just wanted to get that same proud smile my dad gave Mark, the one that made his eyes crinkle. I wanted to be in on the inside jokes and the easy laughter that I always seemed to be listening to from the other room. Looking back, the signs were always there, like tiny cracks in a foundation you don't notice until the whole house falls down. Little things, like family movie trips where they'd forget to tell me until they were literally walking out the door, and I'd have to scramble to get ready, feeling like an afterthought. Conversations would just stop the second I walked into a room, followed by an awkward silence. They planned everything around Mark's schedule, his preferences. My interests were just seen as these weird little hobbies I did alone in my room. I remember my 13th birthday perfectly. I had begged for a telescope because I was obsessed with astronomy. I circled it in catalogs and left printouts on the kitchen counter. On my birthday, I opened my gifts, so hopeful. I got a set of beige sweaters that were 2 sizes too big and a gift card to a store Mark liked. When I asked about the telescope, my dad just laughed and said, "What's a girl gonna do with a telescope? Don't you want makeup or something?" They hadn't just forgotten the gift, they had completely dismissed the part of me that wanted it. It felt like they were telling me that who I was, and what I loved, was wrong. But I learned to just swallow the disappointment. I learned to make myself smaller, to want less, to expect nothing. It was how I survived. In a family that values one type of personality, you either fit in or you become invisible. I chose to be invisible, thinking it would keep me safe. I told myself they weren't being malicious, they were just busy. I was being too sensitive, a phrase my mom loved to use whenever I tried to express how I felt. Being called too sensitive was the quickest way to have your feelings dismissed in my house. So, I just stopped showing them. I built walls around my heart with every forgotten promise and overlooked achievement. I became the family scapegoat, the one who was blamed for things that weren't my fault. If my parents were fighting, I'd be the one who got yelled at for leaving a glass on the counter. My quietness was seen as being moody, and my love for studying was seen as being antisocial. I was cast in a role I never asked for, but I was forced to play it every day. And because I was a kid, I believed it. I believed I was difficult and hard to love. I didn't realize they were telling themselves a story about me so they didn't have to look at their own issues. It was so much easier to make me the problem than to deal with the favoritism and neglect. And I was about to find out just how far they'd go to protect that story. It happened on a Tuesday. I remember the weather was grey and miserable, the kind of day that matched the permanent gloom I was feeling. School was fine, which is to say, I was invisible, just how I was used to. I came home to an empty house, which wasn't weird. My parents worked, and Mark had practice. The silence was normal, even comfortable. I made a snack and sat down to do my homework. My phone buzzed. It was a notification from a messaging app my family used. I glanced at it. You have been added to Cruise Crew Son shipped. For a second, I was just confused. Cruise Crew? I must have been added by mistake. I opened the app, and my heart just stopped. The first thing I saw was a picture. A selfie on the deck of a huge ship, with a brilliant blue ocean behind them. And in the photo were my mom, my dad, Mark, my aunts, my uncle and all my cousins. They were all grinning, wearing sunglasses and bright, tropical shirts. My mom was holding one of those little drinks with an umbrella in it. My dad had Mark in a headlock, a huge, proud smile on his face. They looked so happy. And they were all there. My first thought was, this has to be an old photo. But then I saw the message under it from my Aunt Carol, sent an hour ago, first day at sea. So glad we could all make this happen. Soaking up the sun. My blood ran cold. I scrolled up, my thumb shaking. The chat history was a blur, weeks of messages planning this secret trip. Did everyone get their passports renewed? My mom. Mark is so excited about the rock climbing wall on the ship. My dad. Just booked our shore excursion for Cozumel. Who's in for snorkeling? My uncle. Let's make sure we keep this chat just to us. No need to complicate things. My mom. That last one felt like a punch to the gut. No need to complicate things. Was I the complication? I kept scrolling, my breath hitched in my throat. There were flight details, packing lists, cabin arrangements. A secret vacation, planned for weeks, right behind my back. They had already been gone for 2 days. The house wasn't quiet because of work and practice. It was empty. They were on a cruise. Without me. I felt so sick I thought I was going to throw up. How could they do this? I ran to my parents' bedroom. Their closet was half empty, suitcases gone. I ran to Mark's room, same thing. Their toiletries were gone from the bathroom. The kitchen calendar had a week blocked off with one word, away. I just sank to the floor in the hallway, clutching my phone. Every I love you, every family dinner, it all suddenly felt like a lie. You know how they say rejection physically hurts? I can tell you, that's not just a saying. It felt like my whole body was one giant, throbbing wound. My mind raced for an explanation. Maybe it was for adults and older kids. But my youngest cousin Ben is only 12, and he was right there in the pictures. Maybe it was too expensive? But my family wasn't broke. And even if they were, wouldn't they just tell me? The secrecy is what made it so unbelievably cruel. Then it hit me. My Aunt Carol, probably scrolling through her contacts to add my cousin Carol, must have tapped my name by accident. In her sun-drenched, cocktail-fueled haze, she made one tiny mistake, and the whole secret came tumbling out. A few minutes later, another message popped up in the chat. My mom. Carol, you added her to the chat. Take her off. Now. Then, a notification. You have been removed from Cruise Crew Son shipped. And just like that, I was gone. Erased. But I had seen it. The silence of the house was no longer comforting, it was suffocating. I was completely and utterly alone. That feeling of being an outsider in my own family was just confirmed in the most brutal way possible. This wasn't being forgotten. This was a deliberate choice. It was a statement, you don't belong. I spent the rest of the day in a daze, cycling through waves of pain, confusion, and a white-hot anger I had never felt before. Who did they leave me with? A quick call to my grandparents confirmed they thought I was on the trip with them. My family had lied to everyone. I finally noticed a note on the kitchen counter, tucked under a magnet. Hey sweetie, had to go away for a work thing. Mrs. Gable next door has a key and will check on you. Money for pizza on the counter. Love, Mom and Dad. A work thing. The lie was so lazy it was insulting. They just assumed I'd be the same quiet, compliant daughter who never made a fuss. But reading that note, something inside me changed. The hurt started to turn into something harder. I realized this wasn't just about a vacation. Why go to such extreme lengths? Why lie to everyone? What was so wrong with me that they had to secretly cut me out of the family? I wasn't just sad anymore. I needed to know why. And I was going to find out. For the next 5 days, I was a ghost in my own house. Our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Gable, would knock on the door every evening with a plate of food. "Your mother said you were feeling under the weather," she'd say, peering at me with worried eyes. I'd force a smile, take the plate, and go back inside the silent house. I was a good actor. I'd been playing a part my whole life. I didn't go to school. I just couldn't face anyone. My entire world had shrunk to the 4 walls of that house, a prison of their betrayal. But that burning need to understand why took over. I started looking for clues, for anything. The answer was on my brother's computer. He'd left it logged into his email. I know it was wrong to look, but I felt like they owed me the truth. My hands were shaking as I clicked through his inbox. And there it was. An email chain between my mom, dad, and aunt. The subject, trip details. I scrolled through the messages, my heart hammering against my ribs. It was mostly logistics, but then I found it. An email from my mother to her sister, sent 2 months ago. "I know it feels wrong to leave her behind," my mom wrote, "but honestly it's just easier. Mark deserves a fun trip where he doesn't have to worry about her being mopey or bringing the mood down. She's just so sensitive lately. Everything is a drama. This is a vacation. I just want to relax without having to walk on eggshells. He's the fun one, and this is a fun trip. It's for the best. She'll be fine. She prefers to be alone with her books anyway. She prefers to be alone with her books anyway." The words blurred as I started to cry. They had taken my quiet nature, my love for reading, the very things that made me me, and twisted them into a reason to abandon me. They didn't exclude me for something I did wrong. They excluded me for who I was. My personality was an inconvenience. My feelings were a burden. I wasn't fun like Mark, the golden child. I was the family scapegoat. They weren't just leaving me behind, they were punishing me for not being the child they wanted. When they came home a week later, they walked into a perfectly clean house. I was sitting at the kitchen table, reading a book, like nothing had happened. They were tan, laughing, and loaded down with souvenirs. "Hey!" my dad boomed. "We're back. Did you miss us?" I slowly lowered my book. I looked at him, then my mom, then Mark, who was already texting someone with a cheap shell necklace on. The casual way they walked in, with absolutely no guilt on their faces, was staggering. "How was the cruise?" I asked. My voice was chillingly calm. The silence was deafening. My dad's smile disappeared. My mom went pale. Mark finally looked up from his phone, his eyes wide. How did you know?" My mother stammered. "You added me to the group chat," I said, my voice flat. "But you figured that out, didn't you?" What happened next wasn't a shouting match. It was worse. It was just a waterfall of pathetic excuses and lies. "We were going to tell you. It was a last-minute thing. We thought you'd be bored." I just let them talk, my gaze never leaving their faces. With every lie, I felt something inside me harden into steel. When they finally ran out of excuses, I stood up. "I read the emails, Mom," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I know why you left me. Because I'm not fun. Because I'm an inconvenience. Because you didn't want to walk on eggshells." The look of pure shock and shame on my mother's face is burned into my memory. She was exposed. There was nothing left to say. I didn't scream or cry. I just turned, walked up to my room, and closed the door. That was the day my childhood ended. The illusion of my family was shattered. But in its place was a cold, hard clarity. I realized I had been trying to earn love that was never going to be given freely. It wasn't about my worth, it was about their inability to love me for who I was. From that day on, I changed. I stopped trying to please them. I stopped needing their approval. I poured all that energy back into myself. I excelled in school for me. I joined the astronomy club. I found friends who actually liked my quiet nature and my sensitive soul. My family just became people I lived with. Their power over me was gone. Years have passed. I'm an adult now, with a life I built myself, filled with a chosen family that loves me for exactly who I am. My relationship with my parents and brother is distant. We see each other on holidays, and we're polite, but it's shallow. They never really apologized. They just tried to move on and pretend it never happened, which I now know is a classic move in unhealthy families. But I never forgot. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering what happened, but no longer letting it hurt you. The cruise was the most painful thing that ever happened to me, but it was also the most freeing. It forced me to see the truth. Sometimes, the greatest act of self-love is to stop begging for a seat at a table where you were never welcome. It taught me that my worth isn't decided by the people who can't see it. It taught me to be my own hero and to save myself. And that's a lesson I wouldn't trade for anything. Healing from family trauma is a long journey, and so many of us are on that path. Being excluded can leave deep scars, but it doesn't have to define your future. My story is just one of millions. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, please know you are not alone. Feel free to share your own experience in the comments. Let's build a space where we can support each other, because reading your stories helps all of us feel less isolated. And if this story meant something to you, please consider liking and subscribing for more stories about getting through life's biggest challenges. Your support means the world. Remember, the family you choose can be more real and loving than the one you were born into. Thank you for listening.